Absolutely.
George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Well, we got two people we feel good about. Cheryl Willis Hudson is the author of When I Hear Spirituals. Now, Cheryl is an author, an editor, a publisher, an entrepreneur, and she is a respected published member of the children's book community. She also is the co-founder of Just Us Books. That's right, Just Us Books, publisher and packager of books that celebrate African American children, as well as the co-author of Bright Eyes, Brown Skin, a groundbreaking picture book. But that's just a little bit of the story. She has a whole lot of other books that she has been, that she has authored, but also has helped to promote in her own way. We're also joined by London Ladd. He's a homeboy, graduate of Syracuse University with a BFA and an MFA in illustration. His critically acclaimed artwork has been featured in picture books, newspapers, magazines. We know all this because he's our own. But I got to tell y'all that don't know him, as well as community-based murals. If you're on the south side of Syracuse, you see his Frederick Douglass mural, among others. When I Hear Spirituals is his first book for the publisher Holiday House, and he's a native Syracusean. Also, Cheryl Willis Hudson's website is CherylWillisHudson.com, and London's website is LondonLad.com. I wanted to get all of that introduction out the way so we could have our conversation, because I'm excited to talk to you both about this book, When I Hear Spirituals. So Cheryl, let me start with you. Welcome to Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating the positive achievements of African Americans like you from all walks of life. So
Thank
good to
you
see
so
you, my
much.
dear sister.
I'm happy to be here, my brother. I really am. And I love all the comments that you made before we went on the air about what you guys are doing in Syracuse and the family and the community. And this being a talk about Black, all
Yes,
Black.
that's
Yes.
right. Positively Black, baby.
Positively. And really that's what I think we're experiencing with When I Hear Spirituals.
Yes.
Folks really don't know the depth and the origins of spirituals, and how not only are they deep, but they're broad and embrace so much of African American history and American history, and how much other music is based on the roots that are found in spirituals. So when you're talking about spirituals, you're talking about the songs, but you're talking about oppression, you're talking about bondage, you're talking about colonialism, you're talking about racism, you're talking about stereotypes, but you're talking about hope and resilience, and just what it means to be Black. And that storytelling really is told through song and through spirituals.
Yeah, it's interesting because for many people, and I noticed you left out the word that usually is preceding spirituals. So let's talk about that, right? Negro spirituals, quote unquote. And so why leave that out in the context of talking about spirituals to just so we can be clear what we're talking about?
Well, they were called Negro spirituals. Actually, the first thing these songs were called were slave melodies.
Okay.
The Fisk Jubilee Singers were a group of students at Fisk University, established right after the Civil War, 1865, I think 1867 was when they were established, and they were having money problems. And one of the white instructors there, and all of the instructors at that time were white, and it was a school set up for formerly enslaved people to get an education, as there were schools set up in the South. And these students sang, and they were doing concerts to raise money. They weren't singing slave songs at the time. They were singing whatever was the popular music of the day. But at the end of one rehearsal, they just started singing some of the songs that they had remembered from their parents and had been handed down from the oral tradition. And those songs became Jubilee songs. They became spirituals. And as we evolved from slaves to Africa, from Africans to slaves to African Americans to formerly enslaved to Negro to colored. These are spirituals, and they were called Negro spirituals
back in the day. And
back
so,
in the day.
what was your inspiration using that vehicle to tell the story of this young girl to really uh, tell the story that young people tell stories that young people may or may not be familiar with to help them understand a significant part of their history?
When I first heard spirituals, I was a little child, born, raised in Virginia, grew up in the Baptist church. So I don't remember the first spiritual that I heard. It might have been Go Down Moses. It might have been Wade in the Water, but it's been a part of my life. And
Mm,
what I learned as a child, that hearing those songs just made me feel some kind of way. They were just
okay,
powerful,
right.
that I didn't know at the time that that was history. I thought maybe it was church or whatever, the spirit. But as I grew older and learned more and more about Black history, I realized that those songs told stories not only of an enslaved people's yearning to connect with their creator, but also talking about the day-to-day struggles, what slavery was like, what oppression was like, and how we're going to get over, how we're going to get out of this stuff. So it also represented resistance, steal away to Jesus. So what London did, and from a poem that I really wrote about 40 some years ago, which appeared in Ebony Jr., which was a magazine for Black children. It was just a poem about how I felt about spirituals. Didn't have any lyrics, didn't have any songs in it. But as I grew older and learned more and more, I added to that poem, added to the spirituals, and it became a vehicle for me to express to children what that history was, that you could see in and hear in the stories of the spirituals, that Black history.
And so you talked about what London did. What did London do?
Oh, London, he just did a job on this thing. He took a poem and lyrics of a song. When I hear spirituals, a big feeling flows in my chest. My heart pounds so fast, so hard, seems like it'll overshadow the sounds of the beautiful songs. That was the opening line. He just took that and put a child in it who was me, I guess, could have been me or any child, and let them experience through a succession of spirituals how each spiritual made that child feel. He created this beautiful vision of African American life, and he can tell you about it. I mean, there's a little girl. It's intergenerational. The little girl is singing. She hears music above her head. She can look back and see how she felt when she was dancing in church, or hearing the choir sing, or hearing the sisters clap their hands. It's got so much of just everyday life of Black folks in it. It's just amazing, just amazing. So
And
he can tell you about it. I get weepy.
well, keep talking. We need that for the ratings. But anyway, guys. But London, obviously, you get a lot of opportunities to think about what you're going to do in the time it takes you to do it. What was it about this? And then tell us why you chose to illustrate it in the way that Cheryl described. But what was it about this project that you said yes?
Well, I think the most obvious one, well, here it's kind of twofold. When I was in grad school, when I was doing my master's thesis, and part of my research was on African American representation in America, and I had a section on the spirituals, particularly W.E.B. Du Bois and the sorrow songs. And I knew of spirituals. I never grew up with spirituals. I wasn't raised in a church, let alone a Black church. So for me, uh, as I was really embarking on this research, and I was really in that section of the spirituals, I talked to a scholar in African American studies at Syracuse University, and she was very knowledgeable about spirituals and about that century, about the history for African Americans. And so we went through many a Zoom session, and it didn't click. I hate to say this at first, it did not click. And then all of a sudden, there was we were just months and months of doing my research. It just clicked, and the way she explained it, and then that's why I created this one picture of for my thesis about W.E.B. Du Bois and the sorrow songs. And so I really got what the spirit, the heart of the spirituals and what it meant. As Cheryl, she can explain it way better than me. So fast forward about a year after within a year after I graduated in 2022, my agent had sent me, publishers interested in having you for this project. It's called When I Hear Spirituals by Cheryl Willis Hudson. And I saw that and I was immediately yes. Two things, because it's about spirituals. Like whatever was going on, it was meant. It came to me. It was like
So you
beyond
might
it's
it
like
was a spiritually ordered. You might say it was
oh, think about it,
divinely ordered.
was
Okay.
ordained. It was. It's like when you reflect on it and you really sit back and think about it, you just kind of move in what you're supposed to do without fear. So it was like a yes. And then when I knew and I saw her name, it was like, oh yes, definitely, because I know Cheryl. I've been lucky enough to talk to her and her husband Wade and be in their presence. And I do revere her as somebody who is in this as an African American picture book illustrator. Anybody in the industry knows who they are. So to work for them and work with them, it's an honor. So I had to make sure when I did this, it was gonna be great.
So
So reading it and seeing her notes and stuff like that and what it meant to her, yeah, it was like a yes. So then when I started the research, one of the early things that I did was reach out and ask my agent, can you ask the publisher if she could fill out if I had this questionnaire, and she did it. And then I asked her, because she recorded herself reading, and she recorded herself reading and singing it. So for me, that was like a huge,
hmm.
like again, like Cheryl was saying, a
So
lot of
it wasn't
built.
just the words on the page; it was the lyrical. So you
Oh yeah,
use that as a muse, if you will, as a way to, right? Is that was the way you approached bringing her words to life?
yeah, because I could physically hear her record,
You
hear
could
her
hear
voice.
the spirituals.
Yeah, you could hear it through her, and you know it, not just like the words that were written and the notes that she gave. The publisher she gave to the publisher who gave to me, but she also recorded it. And again, I like in her questionnaire, I would say, what is it about my work that you like? What images? And she nailed the images. The images she liked, I made sure to remember as I was stylistically doing the work. One that was optional, and I have it right here. What is your favorite childhood memory? And she talks about playing, of her dad playing outside with her brothers, under the cherry tree in the yard. And I'm thinking that's why if you look at this book, you don't know where this is taking place. It could be anywhere. You do not see it looks very rural. Like, and see, Cheryl's getting all these little nuggets. 'Cause I told her, I was like, the grandmother was based on her because she's an artist herself. She quilts. So I said, I put that in there. Um, the child, playful. I think of my daughter, but I think of Cheryl as well because her playing outside. There's a dad in there. I modeled the dad after myself. There was so much like it was we were very tied together, and it was such in one accord that this book was. Um, Again, she gave me a list of songs. So, I looked them up on YouTube. I downloaded them. I found like a bunch of spirituals. I made a playlist to the songs in cadence to the book. That would be my prep,
Did
my
you know
warm up.
all this, Cheryl?
I didn't know. I'm learning this today. I'm learning bits and pieces. And London, I forgot that you had asked me about um, the questionnaire, and you were talking about my dad. And I forgot that I had done that, until you mentioned it and outside. And now I'm remembering because my father passed away when I was like 11 years old, but he used to sit outside and he said, our vines had tender blossoms and he'd play. I had three brothers and we'd play and sit on the cherry tree and listen to the breeze and put a blanket out on the ground. And he used to play one of our games. He would play the piano on my back and he would pretend to be a musician and it ended up being a tickling game and we would laugh. But I had forgotten that I had told you about that. So he really captures so much of my experience and just the Black family experience. And I love that he's put himself in the picture too, and that the picture that he mentioned, one of the pictures is the little girl leaning on her father's shoulders, looking over him while he's on the computer. And I'm thinking that could be the computer, but that could be them playing a game, or that could be them listening to music. It and as you had mentioned earlier, George, and we were talking about Alvin Ailey, one of the songs in this book is Rock My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham. And that's one of the signature songs
Yes, it
that
is.
Alvin Ailey uses. And my daughter and I go to see, that's our annual Mother's Day thing, to go and see Alvin Ailey, either in New York or in JPAC. And that's one of the in Revelations, that's just one of the songs that brings the whole musicality of Black people's experience together. And music is so much a part of our experience, not just with Alvin Ailey, but also with Langston Hughes and our famous writers. Langston Hughes did a one production. He did lots of productions, but a theater production called Black Nativity, which is very similar to what Alvin Ailey does in Revelations, because there's music, there's spirituals, there's acting, there's bringing all of this history together in layers. So when London talks about the artwork, his illustration he was posting during that period of time, a new way of going into illustration from a more realistic and a tight rendering, a figurative rendering, to a freer kind of form with mixed media. And there's so much rhythm and color and texture and feeling in his illustrations. It had to be.
Talking with Cheryl Willis Hudson, author of When I Hear Spirituals, along with the illustrator London Ladd, together creating a very powerful book that's out right now. Y'all can get it right now. And so we were talking about London, talking about the creative process and what your inspiration was. And was there a way that the art and the words came together in a way that you did not expect, the two of you?
Um, man, again, for certain, okay, because I had that playlist and I made the playlist early on, and it was something that was like it was a building block for for me during the ideation phase, which is the sketch phase, and going through the revision phase of the drawings to the artwork. I think when I think about the the words, the lyrics, and the songs, I know that like the way the songs that I chose, like everything from Paul Robeson to um a mass choir. It's just escaping me right now.
Mm-hmm.
Mahalia Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Like I chose these songs, and the thing is, like they really did influence the rhythm and the feel and the movement within the book. So like the first page about looking up into the sky, up over my head, that came like just by those words, like I knew it had to be that view. I mean, I've used that perspective in a lot of books that works as a design mechanism. This one worked as the right feeling for the right
Mhm.
intro of the book. That's why it's the same thing as on the cover. And then when you go through to it's funny because, and I wish I could play it, there's a Mahalia Jackson song, How I Got Over, and it's like a live rendition that was on a TV show, so it's kind of grainy, but that song was the backbone of the whole book, because if you hear this version, the 6-minute version, and she starts clapping and it gets very churchy, it's very honest,
Mhm.
not commercial at all. It's very back country feel to it, like that, like when you see them, like the page where you show the grandmother and the man and the dad clapping, and it's slightly tilted, like that movement, that swaying back and forth. That's why it's tilted, because when you have something still like this, it's very static, but when
Mm.
you shift it, now it creates a movement. So that's why when you see throughout this book, thank you, Cheryl, that they're like a lot of the pages, the perspectives are up, down, side, because it's meant to mimic movement. And it's funny you talk about Alvin Ailey, because he was part the praise dance scene.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That was from
Yeah.
him.
Hmm.
That was from that's meant to be a praise dancer, but it's supposed to, because I love to do, as you could see, like a recent Instagram post where it shows the dancer, because I like that right there is Ailey right there.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
white dress and all. Yeah. You can
thanks,
see it.
Alex.
And it's
He's
a feeling inside of me. I
yeah.
love what you're saying, London, because you go for, in terms of perspective, in terms of pacing of a children's book, there's certain ways that you do things. A children's illustrator, a good children's illustrator's got to have a character that they take through from the beginning to the end, and it's the same character. They can't look like they're 20 years old on one page and
Hmm.
5 years old on the next. But there's an inside and an outside feeling that comes through in this book through the illustrations and through the service, if you will, and the fact that you have this perspective of a child looking up, and the fact that they're doves—that's the Holy Spirit right there. I mean,
Amen.
you know anything about it? Over my head, I hear there must be a God somewhere. That you can feel from the perspective of somebody who's in bondage, enslaved. Now you got me in chains. You got me here working in the fields. You got me here not giving me food, water, taking my family away. Got to be a God somewhere, and that longing is based on traditional African religions. I mean, everything was stripped away. So it's not just an embrace of Christianity per se, it's a longing to be connected to your origins and your homeland and your strength. So you got this perspective looking down at the child. The next page you have her father or maybe her brother, an older person, saying, nobody knows the trouble I see.
Come
And
on.
it goes there from nobody knows the trouble I see to, well, sometimes I feel like a motherless child,
Okay,
a long
Langston.
way from home. So you get the connection from Africa, and through distance and being outside and inside, you get the inside feeling that the child has, but then the outside kind of manifestation of where you see that or where you can identify it.
So you've chosen, and you were very deliberate about the types of music and history and what you wanted to intertwine in this book. How did you decide which spirituals to highlight for your story?
That I think it's the same kind of thing. It was a natural. There's so many spirituals that are familiar, and I wanted to use ones that I liked and had heard a lot. But in writing the poem, um, I use a refrain as the call and response, and the repetition that's a part of African American music and African American storytelling. And there's a line that reads, spiritual speak to something tender and gentle and reverent inside of me.
Mm.
So steal away is the natural spiritual to sing. Or sometimes I feel alone and lost. So sometimes I feel like a motherless child. It relates to an immediate, I guess it was just a response to an emotion in the poem itself. And they just kind of came to me, steal
So,
away. There's a balm in Gilead, that's healing when you sing, when music is played, it does heal you. It's something good about singing, makes you feel better.
so how difficult is it, or how challenging is it to create a narrative that is going to resonate with both children and adults? For children, teaching them about a part of their history that they may not even be familiar with, and to connect them to it, and then for adults to help them to remember something that they may have grown up with. Because when I hear spirituals, it goes deep down in my soul. I don't have to try to understand it. It's already in me. You understand what I'm saying? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm wondering how you craft a story that helps me remember, but also is going to resonate with the youngins as well.
I think you have to really do that, and the art makes a whole bit of
This is
a
where the
lot.
illustrator comes in.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I can say uh, when I hear spirituals, I want to stop, clap my hands, I want to stomp my feet, I want to sway to the beat, and find a way to share that feeling deep down inside of me. So I didn't tell London what to illustrate, but he got it. The child is stamping. He made the words, the narrative relate to the feeling, but also relate to a specific song, a specific image that would show a child that this it could have been Elijah Rock, it could have been something else, but Rock of My Soul in the Bosom of Abraham just made sense to put it there. So it's a subtle form, I hope, of indoctrination, that we're teaching Black history through the words, through the lyrics of the spirituals, and the vision. Because you can, when I hear spirituals, I can hear these spirituals when I'm reading
Well,
and looking at this book. And so hopefully when an older person, a mother, a child, a teacher reads to a child, they will remember and sing the songs, sing them along rather than just read them.
I mean, is this the beginning of other potential collaborations, London and Cheryl?
Of course.
London?
Hey, never you never know in this business. I'm always open. There's a short list of people, and definitely Cheryl is on that list. And her husband Wade, because I
Yes.
think they do books that are very honest, and they come from a really great place, and their intentions are pure. And for me, that's all you could hope for at this point in my career. I've been doing it long enough. I don't need to chase. That's the good thing. I don't need to chase the story. I let the stories come to me. That's why this one works so well, because it just came to me. I didn't have to go seek it out.
Wow.
I follow. I'm more willing to follow and be patient and let it come to me. So I know we'll work together. I know we've worked together before. I did,
Yeah.
I guess, an illustration for them, about 4 years ago for a book that under Just Us Books, recognized.
Mhm.
So, it's just a matter of time. And I've had,
Okay,
you
I'm
know,
ready. I'm ready. I'm bringing it on.
Talk to me, Cheryl. Two things I wanted to get into before we go, and anything else that we wanted to get into. But let me remind people we're talking with Cheryl Willis Hudson and London Ladd. London Ladd is the illustrator. Cheryl Willis Hudson is the author of When I Hear Spirituals. It's out right now. Get it, and add it to the collection, because we must use every vehicle that we have to teach our children our history, Black history. We have to do it. And so I want to talk about two things that I'm intrigued by, that if I didn't ask you, my wife would be like, well, why you ain't asked that? So you are also a story quilter. So talk to me about that, because my wife is also a quilter. And so I
Wow.
wanted to to hear a little bit more about that artistic expression as well.
Well, and I'm so glad you asked. Quilting and story quilting is kind of my art form. I'm not an illustrator, but I love art and I love music and I love fabric. And long story short, I started quilting really about 15 years ago. When my son moved out of the house and he had um, these old-fashioned mirrors on the wall that I couldn't get off. These 12, those stick-on mirrors. And I said, I got to cover this thing up so I can make this an office. Long story short, I was thinking about a canvas. I was thinking about hanging something there. And my sister-in-law, who is a quilter, suggests, why don't you make a quilt? And, put it over each one of the blocks was like 12 by 12. So I started making patches, and the quilts that I made, the first quilt that I made was one on music and meditation, because that's what I was doing, meditating on music. And each one was a square of some aspect of music. And then I began doing individual quilts, larger ones that related to a specific song. And When I Hear Spirituals was one of them. And it was a quilt that had a picture of Paul Robeson and Marian Anderson and a list of a lot of people that, there's a lot of geometry and stuff in quilts. So it's storytelling. That's my way of storytelling, my personal way of storytelling. And I started this book trying to make a picture book out of my poem, but it wasn't working. I just ended up making the quilts.
And that's where London came in, right? So
right, absolutely. He's the one that made it a book.
And then you're a publisher as well, Just Us Books. Tell me about Just Us Books.
In a word, Just Us Books is just us. My husband and I started the company 36 years ago. We had children. And during that time, I've been working in publishing for 50 years, really, and worked in school publishing, where there were very few Black people, illustrator, people of color in textbooks. And one of my jobs was to color in the white ones, so that there would be some appearance of people of color. Long story short, Wade and I had stories, and we collaborated early in our relationship, with his being a writer and my being an art editor at the time, and tried to get some books published. And there were no takers. Everybody said, you get Michael Jackson or somebody to support you, then maybe it'll be a book, but not really looking at the content. So we just decided to do it ourselves, took a leap of faith and started self-published an ABC book with Black children as the main characters, and then went on to do some picture books, biographies, history books, and that's what we've been doing, and wanted to just express, authentic stories for African American children that centered them in the story. So they're not a sidekick or somebody who happened to integrate the school or join the white kids. It's just our stories that need to be told.
What do you want people to take away, the two of you, just as we wrap? What do you want people to do when they hear, or feel when they read When I Hear Spirituals?
London.
I want you to take this one, because I think I love the way you articulate. I just sit back and listen. That's the thing. I speak through the art. I can explain the art, but like, I'm just sitting back and enjoying. So please.
All right, so to deal with that piece, what do you want people to take? Because what is being said about your vibrant, deeply colorful, artistic interpretation of her words, what do you want people to leave with, feel from the words that you've illustrated? And then Cheryl can answer her piece.
Okay, I think for me, when like I said, when I look through this book, I want people to really understand and feel and appreciate what the spirituals are, what they've been, what they continue to be, and what they will be. And let this book kind of hopefully be a vehicle that they could use to really appreciate them. You know, the visuals, the artwork is, to me, it's it helps draw them in, but it's the words,
Mm.
to me, hold the greatest value. Because those, like Cheryl was saying, those were passed down way before they were written down.
Mm.
So I think, like, for me, the art is just, for me, it's just a way of, I want people to really know and understand the appreciation and again the reverence and the respect that I have and that it emits through into what the spirituals are. So for young readers, for families, actually, I want families to and I want this book to be, it won't help book sales, but I want this to be something that's passed down. Like
Oh,
spiritual.
I got the solution to that. You'll buy 2 or 3 copies.
Yeah.
And you...
It sounds, I mean, London, you said exactly what I would have said. I want children, families to take away from the reading of when I hear spirituals is a connection with their heritage, with their families, with their ancestors. There's one particular illustration that London loves that I mentioned and we talked about before, and it's a picture of a slave revolt that happened in 1811 in Louisiana. And although it was not successful in terms of forming a union of Black people that could really liberate themselves, it showed Black people in their unity and in their resilience and in their opposition to slavery, that they didn't make it. It wasn't successful, but they wanted to free themselves, to liberate themselves. And music is liberating in a sense. And the visuals, don't downplay them at all, because the songs and the lyrics talk about that experience, but these illustrations make you feel that experience. You know, you can't help but feel, the love that a child and their father has, that togetherness, that defies what people say about absent fathers and families. You know, there's a real living history here in familiar things that families will recognize, whether it's the computer or a picture on the wall, or even the end of Get On Board, Little Children, the Great Migration. It talks about the great, and Paul Robeson, who made that song famous, and it's sung in kindergartens. But people may not know that that's a spiritual, but it came from leaving one place, going to another. There's room for many and more. Same thing with "Oh Freedom Over Me" and Joshua Fit the Battle of Jericho, with civil rights marches. And so much of this music, I was listening to BGO this morning, and they have a Come Sunday program that talks about African American music. And so many of the spirituals have been done as straight out spirituals, as gospel, as R&B, Charles Lloyd doing it as jazz, Wade in Water, in so many renditions, that these spirituals are part of your life. And if you recognize them and see these pictures, you're going to know. So the value of spirituals in our total framework of music and life.
Now, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Cheryl. You could just say maybe next time, but I know you sing. So throw a little something at us, because I know you do that. So give me a little something.
I'm going to say, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Come
That
on
I
now.
love that over my head. So the one thing about spirituals is, you can sing them and everybody can sing. They might be on a different key, on a different note, but it all blends together. It all blends together.
But I tell you what, I felt you there though. Okay, you did that. All right.
Right,
When
all
I Hear
right.
Spirituals is the name of the book. It's out right now. Get it wherever you get your books. Just Us. Cheryl Willis Hudson is her website. CherylWillisHudson.com, LondonLad.com. Just Us Publishing as well. And you can find the book wherever you would like to get your books. Get the book. Get a couple of books so you can hand one out and keep one for yourself. But When I Hear Spirituals, Black History Month is coming. A lot of us go to the schools and we read. Get a couple of these books. School districts buy these books because they need to be there. And we celebrate positively Black Cheryl Willis Hudson, London Lad, for your outstanding work on When I Hear Spirituals here on George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation. Any final thoughts at all, or did we just say it all? Should we even say anything after Cheryl sang? Maybe not, but
Amen.
amen, amen, and amen. George Kilpatrick, Inspiration for the Nation.